Hey, what's going on, guys? So just kind of wanted to give you guys a quick story, a quick little rundown, jump back into the whole filming videos type thing. But just fairly recently, I was driving down the street and hit a pothole, and my tire popped, and it really sucked because I was actually on my way to work, and then I wasn't able to go into work for the rest of the day because my tire was popped, and I had to go and get it replaced and stuff like that. And well, that kind of got me thinking. So I can do one of two things, right? I could, one, tweet at the city of LA and say something along the lines of, why are you not fixing the roads that we're paying you to fix? Or two, I could, maybe do a bit of research and see why it is that our streets aren't getting fixed. And I kind of came to the conclusion that I can just do both. So that's exactly what I did. But basically today I wanted to answer the following question. Why is LA not fixing its streets? And, considering that we are a very wealthy city as far as, GDP is concerned in comparison to most. So why are our city streets so bad? Well, I did some research and I found the following. The answer is actually not that simple. It's a fairly complicated system. So after doing a bit of research, I found that basically even by its own accord, it has what it would consider 1/3 of all of its streets to be in poor condition. Basically what that means is it's riddled with potholes, cracks, lifted asphalt. Like, it's just an undrivable condition, where it would potentially cause damage to your car if driven on for long periods of time. And despite that, the city's streets are probably going to stay that bad for a pretty long time, even though LA accounts for about $150 million to repair these streets. Now that money is, raised through taxes. Basically, we get taxed every time you go to the gas pump, and that money goes to repairing city streets, and that generates about $150 million per year. So where is that $150 million going to? So according to the city's Department of Public Works, about 80% of that $150 million is going to go to fix the roads that aren't that damaged. Now, what they mean by doing this is they basically have a grading system of A, B, C, D, and F. The best streets, which are, the ones most commonly driven on, the ones that aren't really that cracked, pretty much think about the best roads in your city, and those are probably considered an A. From there, if it has a couple minor cracks or the asphalt's starting to wear, it's probably going to be considered B. Now, if it's considered C, if some of the cracks are starting to cause asphalt to crumble, at that point they're probably going to be considered C, but they don't have any large or major potholes. 80% of that $150 million is going to repairing those streets. And only 20% of that $150 million is going to be used to repair D and F streets. Now, D streets are what they would consider a street with a lot of potholes or large cracks, and F streets would be pretty much considered streets that need to be redone. Those are streets that have so many potholes that you pretty much have potholes in potholes, or gigantic cracks and big potholes, or parts of asphalt that are lifting up or sinking down. Those would be considered F streets. So why aren't they spending more money on the F streets? So that's basically the city's policy, is the 80-20 policy. 80% of the money will be used to maintain the roads that are good so that they do not become F or D streets. And only about 20% of the money is going to be used to repair D and F streets to bring them up to a C standard, at least. So about 80% of that $150 million will go to repairing roads that are considered A, B, or C, and they kind of distribute that money based off of lane miles. So what a lane mile is, it's the unit that they use to measure distance for for a lane of road. So basically, if you had a 4-lane road that's 1 mile long, that would be 4 lane miles. Now, if you had one single road that was 2 miles long but 2 lanes, that would also be considered 4 lane miles. So basically that money, the reason why we're spending 80% of that money is because all we really need to do to those C, B, and A's are basically fill small potholes or just use tar slurry to just kind of fill in or smooth out some cracks. Now, the reasoning behind this is that in order to fix 1 lane mile of a D or F road, it's going to cost significantly more money. For example, it's going to cost about $500,000 per lane mile of a D street, whereas an F street could cost up to $1 million per lane mile to completely resurface that road. That's significantly more expensive. And the justification is, if we're throwing all of this money into only fixing the worst of the worst streets, the streets that are in good condition will eventually fall into being bad streets, and we're basically stuck into a situation where a dog is chasing its own tail, where you're never really going to reach that solution, because as you're fixing bad streets, your good streets are now becoming bad streets. So in trying to solve the problem, we're actually just throwing ourselves back into chasing an unreachable goal. So that's why the city actually spends more money on fixing streets that are good than streets that are objectively much worse. Now, that actually brings me to a pretty cool point. In doing this research, I was able to find some of the streets that are the best and some of the worst. So, personally, I think I live on some fairly decent streets, although in order to get to work and back, I have to drive over some pretty bad roads. But just for us to have a bit of fun, here are the top 5 best streets in all of Los Angeles County. If you live or drive on the Century Park East Street, then you're driving on one of the best streets. And the streets that follow that one are Universal Studios Boulevard. Of course, it's right next to Universal Studios. Avenue 42, which I actually have no idea where that is, but Avenue 42, if you live near there or drive on it, you're driving on a very, very good street. LA Live Way. So LA Live Way is right in downtown LA, and it has a ton of traffic constantly, and I see them repairing it all the time. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of the best roads. It gets a lot of money invested into. And finally, for the best streets would be Overland Avenue. Again, it's another street that I have no clue where this is, but apparently LA thinks it's one of the best roads to drive on. So if you live anywhere near those streets, good for you. You know, you get to do something that a lot of us don't. Now, for the unfortunate of us that have to drive some of the worst city streets of Los Angeles, at number 5, we're going to go from 5 being the least worst and 1 being the absolute worst. You're actually basically looking at Riverside Drive. If you drive on Riverside Drive, I'm sorry for you, your car, and your wallet, because you're going to be needing to replace tires very frequently. Next on that list is Fairfax Avenue, another street that I have had the misfortune of having to drive on, and it is horrible. If you've never driven on one of these streets, you should go try it out if you really want to damage your wheel. And on number 3, Mulholland Way. I don't know where this is, and I consider myself lucky for not knowing where this street is. And for number 2, a street that is near and dear to a lot of Angelinos' hearts, Griffith Park Way. That is a horrible street to drive on, but it's still not as bad as our number 1 worst street to drive on, and that is Laurel Canyon Boulevard. If you've ever driven on Laurel Canyon Boulevard, you know exactly where it is. You know how absolutely horrible it is to drive on. There are cracks everywhere. There are gigantic potholes everywhere. Your car vibrates to hell and back while driving on it. If you ever want to find out if your car has a loose anything, drive on that road, and I can promise you it will either fall off by the end of it or be severely loose. So that's pretty much it. Go ahead and check those streets out if you want to, have a pretty bad time. So guys, thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to check out some of my other videos. I actually am going to be putting out a couple more videos here. I stopped uploading for a while, but jumping right back into it. So let's try to stay consistent with it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.